My friends, good day. Someone contacted me on the WhatsApp number I provided, and their question is as follows. I have a generalist profile in information technology. I'm someone who got into information technology after a career change, a successful career change. Besides, as proof, sometimes it works. But today, after having done development for quite a while, then he moved on to data. Well, suddenly he has this feeling that he's a bit vulnerable in his career in the sense that he doesn't have any particular specialty. He's a generalist, which means he knows a lot of things, but he's not exceptional in any particular field. So he's starting to ask himself questions about what to do. Another related question is, should I move towards management? That's a tricky question. I'll answer it at the end of the video. There you go. First of all, when I was interviewing people for jobs, I was conducting what we call technical interviews. That means I was the one or among those who asked technical questions to people. So one of the big problems with some information technology profiles is that they become too specialized too early. That means we have, for example, a typical case, people who want to work in cybersecurity. They have no idea about system management. They've never done sysadmin work. They've never done development. They don't know how to write a single line of code. They've never connected to a cloud, Linux machine, Windows server, or anything similar. They don't know how to manage a switch or router, none of that. But they've studied cybersecurity, sometimes in schools for varying lengths of time, and then they show up. So the problem we had with this kind of profile was that they specialize too early and they're unable to work in a multidisciplinary team, because that's the idea. When you join a company, you're dealing with a concrete real-life situation. You're facing a network engineer, a database administrator, you have a cloud architect, you have lots of people. So you're not supposed to replace them, right? Everyone has their job, everyone has their area of responsibility. Yes, but you're supposed to work with them. You're supposed to be able to interact and understand what they're doing. So that's where it gets interesting for the person who wrote this message. Actually, here's the thing. Today, I prefer someone who's a generalist, even if they say they're not excellent everywhere. But he has a good foundation, he has solid basics, than someone who specialized too early. That's why we're hiring you, and I'm going to ask you to tell you. A question I often ask during interviews, and that many recruiters might ask in a slightly different way. And I'll tell you what kind of answer I was expecting. That's the idea. I'm with the person, let's say in an office, there are glass walls facing the room, and I say to them, do you see the guy over there in the corner? Well, him, when we have a problem with a Windows server, I've never met anyone in my life who's as good as he is. There's nothing he doesn't know about Windows servers. You can give him the most complicated thing, a corrupted redundant array of independent disks partition, and the server, it boots by giving blue screens and master records that have to be repaired by hand, things like that. I'm talking about very serious stuff. He can do it, all right? Okay, him, you see the other one over there, not necessarily good at everything, okay? On the other hand, in networking, I mean, if he's not the one who can solve your problem, there's no one else. Don't try to Google it or anything. If it's not him, it's no one else, all right? And now here's the question. So let's say we hire you, that you're going to join our team. Why would we come to you? On what occasion would we come to you? On what occasion would we consult you? And so what I expect as an answer, I expect to get a person as an answer. Here we are in the tropics, you see. It can be calm, and then it can suddenly explode with storms, wind, rain, and so on. The weather is pretty treacherous here. So, by the way, just quickly, in the video description, in the attached English web link, you'll see that there are partners of this channel. They are based in France, and they've helped quite a few people that I've sent to them to find a job. So for people who are looking for work, you can check out their website. People who went through them, who took their support, have been hired by big companies, Renault, Canal+, etc., Électricité de France, and all that. And also, under certain conditions, their support is covered by France Travail, so they follow a support charter and all that. So there you go, really professional people in the video description. Now, the answer I was expecting is that I want to feel like I have someone. Okay, I have someone who's a generalist. That's the first thing. We like generalists. So for the guy who asked the question, yes, it's great to be a generalist. It means that we have a good background. We have skills that are built on something solid. Now, here's the other question. What are you specialized in? So to him and to all the people who are generalists, during your journey as a generalist, you must have discovered something that you have a particular interest in. You must have come across something that suddenly you found easy. For example, personally, I was working on Linux on the network. These were things I really liked, things I enjoyed. They were things I found easy, things I invested time in. I also spent money on certifications. I took exams. So after a while, I developed a very strong credibility in that area. So the recruiter, that's what he wants to see. He wants to see this. You can imagine, I won't draw it for you, but you can imagine a curve, okay, a knowledge curve that's quite broad, that covers a lot of things. So here you're the generalist. But in certain places, there are peaks in one area. Sometimes just in one area is enough, or maybe in two areas. You have spikes, a peak here, a peak further away. So that means not only are you a specialist somewhere, okay, you're very good in a certain area, but also we can work with you. You understand us as well if we call you into a multidisciplinary team. And if there's a project where there's a problem, where there's a conversation with a client and it involves a lot of things, we're there, we're talking. Today, we're deploying such a solution. It's hybrid. There will be a part that's on premises and a part that's on the cloud. We're going to have a line that will draw between the two. We're going to install a VPN. We'll put a firewall here. We'll put an intrusion prevention system there. And we'll also have an issue with the database. You don't need to be a C expert in this, but you do need to understand what we're talking about. And you need to yourself integrate all of this and be able to fit in as a professional in this process. So there you go. What you have left today is to specialize. Okay, what you have left is to specialize. So I have no worries for you, but you need to specialize. Secondly, he told me, shouldn't I move towards management? Listen, it's a very controversial question. I can't give you a clear answer and tell you, yes, go into management, or no, don't go into management. I'll tell you a bit about the issue. First, most of the time, you don't go into management because you want to. You go into management because someone else wants you to. You become a manager in a company, and a company is not a democracy. You become a manager because someone decided it, and you don't become a manager because someone decided it. So if your company offers clear, documented, and transparent paths to move into management, I would say, why not? But in general, it's not like a card you have on the table. You say, well, I can't progress in my field. I'm too much of a generalist, so I'll become a manager. No, it's not always something that's available to you. It's not something that's always on the table. You see, that's the first point. The other point, even if you become a manager because you have a path that leads you there, it's not something that will necessarily give you more job security. You see what I mean? Why? Because I also look, there are a lot of companies that realize they're too top heavy, like at Disney, that they have too many layers of management. I've seen companies, honestly, where you have 3 people working and 5 or 6 layers of managers above them. 1, then another, then 2, then 3, then 4. And they're there to sign. You have to write to them for approval. You have to get their authorization. And then after that, get the authorization from the one above them. And sometimes you have 2 layers, you have 2 management layers that don't agree. One says yes, the other says no, and so on. So these become companies that are paralyzed by these management layers, and that cost a lot, where nothing gets done. So today, there are a lot of companies that realize they're very heavy because of this. And the managers are also being let go. They can declare that, well, we want to reduce the management layer by 30%. So you can be let go too, but you'll tell me if you're a worker, your job can also be outsourced to India. I mean, there's no security, there's no formula. I don't want to give you a formula and say this one is perfect. On the other hand, if you can't move into management, maybe I can give you another option. It's to specialize technically and become very good. Because the better and more specialized you are, the less likely you are to be let go or fired. But it can happen in the case of a restructuring, where sometimes half the company leaves. I mean, it doesn't depend on who's good or who's bad. I mean, they'll say we're going to cut half the staff, and sometimes it doesn't really have any, there's not really any clear logic to it. You can get laid off even if you're very good, but on the other hand, if you're very good, even when you get laid off, you'll be able to find a job more easily. That's what's interesting. You see what I mean? Being good, being excellent, it kind of makes you, in quotes, indispensable in your company. So at that point, it's solid. Or what's happening is that it's going to somehow allow you, if ever, despite everything, you get hit by a layoff plan, it still allows you to jump to another company without too much trouble anyway. Well, friends, thank you for listening up to this point. It was a pleasure to be here with you as well. In the last video, I showed you how I record an audiobook. It was important for me to show you that. Do you know why? Because I prepared my books in audiobook format, the book Toxic, among others. I think I started with that book. It was important for me to show you that this is something I do myself in a handcrafted way. Okay, because there are a lot of authors or others who use automatic voices, robot voices, or even clone their own voice and everything. And honestly, personally, when I buy an audiobook or even just get a regular one and listen to it, and I come across robotic voices, usually I don't go any further, I stop right away. So that's why I wanted to show you that it will be a real voice with its qualities, with its flaws, with sometimes its variations, sometimes its hesitations. It can happen, but it will be a real, authentic human voice. So my friends, I'll remind you one last time about the Oculus link in the video description. And I'll see you tomorrow or the day after. See you very soon.